Hello, everybody. Time for another Wary with Cary. Today, I'm going to review an old episode, of the show Animorphs, which is based on the book series Animorphs, which you might have seen. It's basically these kids who gain the ability to turn into animals, which they use to fight off an evil alien invasion. And there's a bunch of war crimes and silly, goofy stuff too. So it's got all your bases covered. Yeah. So the Animorphs book series. Brief little overview here. Got the little explaining. The Animorphs book series. First of all, started in '96, went to 2001. Had a total run of 54 regular books, 4 Megamorphs, 2 Alternative Morphs rather, and I think there was 4 Chronicles. The 2 Andalite Chronicles, the Hork-Bajir Chronicles, and the Animal. Oh no, there was also Visser. So there was really 5 Chronicles, but I was just called Visser. So a pretty big series of books here that might not be as known today because it's not like there's anything currently with it. And if you didn't really watch it or read the books or weren't really there, it's one of those things kind of lost in the ether of time. Except there has been a bit of interest in it over recent years. There's been the Animorphs graphic novels, which I haven't seen yet, but they look really good, and I'd like to get a few of them. I think there's only 4 right now. I kind of want to get those 4 and just maybe buy more of again when they release them. YouTuber Paparita, who makes a lot of great videos about things like Nickelodeon shows, stuff like that, did a whole series a few years back where he read through every single book one by one. Also make videos kind of like how the Animorphs relate in the age of Trump and stuff like that. Definitely recommend giving him a watch. But anyway, so the TV show. Let's get the TV show started in 1999 on Nickelodeon. It was a 30-minute show, and because Animorphs is very action oriented and very much a lot of stuff is sci-fi action, I don't think Nickelodeon was the best choice for this because at this time, even today, I don't even think they'd be the best choice. But at this time, they definitely didn't have the real capabilities to tell this story. I don't think, could be wrong, but they didn't seem they didn't. So what you kind of get here is from what I see. Remember watching it growing up and a few years ago, before the episode I just watched recently. Right now, you kind of get a weird bit of a teen drama with mostly bad comedy, at least from what I think, and occasionally a fight scene with effects that I thought were more outdated than they were, but they don't seem as bad. But yeah, there's not. My point is that it doesn't really capture the essence of the books. Like the books have a whole vibe their own, and the show is a completely different vibe, including down to the chemistry of the characters. I don't feel really resonates from what I've seen. Again, I only watched a little bit here and there. I never even watched the show when I was a kid, and I was obsessed with Animorphs. I didn't even watch the show really because I just didn't have a way to watch. I had it Nickelodeon, but it was on Sundays before school and late, and I kind of didn't really get a chance to watch it. And we had like one TV in the house with cable, and usually around the time my dad would be watching the news, stuff like that. So I thought I'd have because the whole show was on Tubi. Apparently there's only 26 episodes, but I didn't even know. But the whole show was on Tubi, and I thought to do something a little interesting. Everybody could watch an episode, watch the first episode, or the second episode. You can watch the last episode. But that's boring. I want to do something different. So I want to take a look at a specific episode, a specific idea, and I'll show you the cover of the book it's based on, and I'll explain the concept. I'm going to have to explain a lot of stuff here, and hopefully I don't take too long because I need to get to the actual review. But this is the book. This is the book that the episode we're going to watch. It's called Back to Before. And hence the title. The idea here is that the Animorphs, who got their power from this alien that was crashing and dying in front of them, the leader of the Animorphs, Jake, he wishes to just not do this anymore. He makes a deal with this evil being known as the Drod, who works for a even more evil being known as Krayak, to never go down the construction site where they went to go home from the mall, never meet Elfangor, the Andalite, the alien that gave him the powers, and basically never do this because he's tired of it. He's a kid. He's a young teenager. I think according to the end of the books, he would have been like around 13 around this time because pretty close to the end anyway. And I think they say at the end of the books he's like 14, if I remember correctly. Yeah, and he's just tired. He's seen his cousin basically become this battle-hardened warrior. They've done horrible things to a person that betrayed them because they had to. He's seen one of his friends trapped as a hawk, as a bird, a prey, not even a human, stuff like that. And he just had enough. And what happens is it creates a separate timeline now where they never go. And there's a bunch of stuff that happens. And there's an episode that it vaguely kind of goes for the same ideas, and it's called Not My Problem. Which I don't think he ever said in the episode, Jake, but anyway. This is a bit interesting because Back to the Before was the last Megamorphs book. Right, so this is the last, like, by the way, I should point out, Megamorphs were like big versions of the regular books, and in addition to having like a different story, it would have like, because all the books would alternate between perspective of each character, right? And there's 6 of them. This would have like perspectives of every character. And this was the last one. This was like not that long before the big closing arc of the final thing. And I should probably talk about a couple other things here, like just a brief little overview of the Animorphs, kind of. So I kind of covered a little bit of it. Okay, so dying alien crashes in a construction site rather. This alien is called an Endolite. It's gonna be a little hard because I'm a little wasted, and all these words are not words; they're made up words, you know. But I'll try my best. This Endolite, which is like a blue like minotaur with stalk eyes, no mouth. I can just show you a picture actually. What the fuck am I doing? Yeah, so let me show you an Endolite. We'll show you an Endolite what it looks like. Essentially, they look like this. Right? And they speak with their mind in your head, called thought speak. And when it was in the books, it would have like little triangle parentheses things. I've used this on Twitter sometimes because it's kind of funny. Most because people don't get it. Anyway, that's Elfangor. He's a prince. And he's a war prince. Or I think he's just a regular prince. Anyway, he's a prince. He's a prince. And because he's a prince, he breaks one of the sacred Andalite laws. He gives the technology of morphing ability, which the Andalites have made from a blue box, a blue cube known as the Escafil device, or sometimes simply just a morphing cube. And he lets all of them get it if they want to, because the Yerks, which are these evil alien race of slugs, have started infiltrating their planet. We'll get a picture of the Yerks too. So essentially, these are the Yerks. They're slugs, they go in your ear, they control you once they're in there. You become what's known as a controller. They've already started infestating Earth. And because they are so stealthy and because they take over people, nobody really knows this is happening other than the Andalites. And they've taken over worlds before. So essentially, these kids are the last light of hope for now. Because in the beginning, I think Elfangor says that he sent out a call to the Andalite fleet. Because the Andalites are kind of at war with the Yerks. But it might take them a while to get there. We don't know how long, although as the books go on, it changes a lot, like how the time is. So yeah, other than that, that's a basic brief overview, and I'll talk about kind of the characters. You have Jake, who's the leader, kind of forced to be the leader because he's kind of the absurd one, the kind of one they all listen to, kind of the dude who can bring everybody together. You have his cousin Rachel, who is a kind of like she loves shopping. She's a girl who likes shopping and stuff like that, and she likes like fashion and perfume and stuff. At the same time, she's also like really ready down the fight and battle. She's always ready to jump into a fight, which she needs to, especially for her friends or to help her family. You have her best friend, and Rachel's the cousin of Jake. Her best friend, Cassie, who's like an environmentalist kind of character who cares a bunch about animals. She lives in a place that's like her dad is a vet. Both her parents are vets. She lives in a place where they take care of animals. They're like a barn, you know? And they kind of call it like a hospital. I forget the exact name. Anyway, and you also have Tobias, who starts out as a human. He's kind of a nerdy, kind of sensitive dude who's bullied a lot. But by the end of the first book, he gets trapped in the morph of a hawk, a red-tailed hawk. Because there's a rule of morphing. You can't stay in morph longer than 2 hours. Despite the technological advances, that's your limit. You have time to do this. And then you also have Marco, who's Jake's best friend, who is basically, he is a guy who usually is really funny and cracking jokes, so sometimes he can be a bit mean, take things too far. But his other thing is that he's kind of cocky, kind of thinks he's the shit, and also at the same time, he is very much like a guy who understands strategy and understands how things work, to the point that he's sometimes called ruthless because he doesn't really care what needs to be done. And then there's a sixth person that, as far as the books are concerned, they don't consider him an official Animorph. The name that Marco made up. Anyway, so he's an Andalite. He's the brother Andalite of Elfangor. That's Ax, or Aximili, Iskaroof, Istil, or Aximili, or Aximili. I've heard Aximili. I've always said Aximili. I don't know which is the proper term. I have to hear the actual audiobooks to know. But I've heard both versions. But yeah, and his thing is that he's a kid like the rest of the kids. He's not like his brother. His brother's older, and he's trying to fight to avenge. And at the same time, he's trying to understand human culture, and he accepts them as his friends. And he's a bit kooky. He has a human morph he takes that he gets for like all their DNA. Like you acquire DNA by touching people too. It's not really gonna matter in the episode, but I don't know. I'll bring it up. But yeah, and he kind of likes food a lot, and food because he doesn't have a mouth as an Andalite. Also TV because they don't really have that on his Andalite planet. He's really obsessed with TV. This man, like if you had him today and you showed him all the TV you could watch, he would lose his mind. But anyway, I've said enough. Let's talk about the episodes. This is a long intro. I might fill in some other blanks here if I have to, but anyway. Alright, so let's go. First of all, oh yeah, also I think I mentioned the Nickelodeon series wasn't a good adaptation. Anyway, so first of all, we start. The kid actors here are not very good. I'm just gonna say. It is what it is, you know, I understand. It's like Nickelodeon, 1999. There's Sean Ashmore, who played Iceman in the X-Men movies and who played in The Boys, is, was it Lantern Light, I think? He's in this, he's Jake, he's pretty good, I'll say. And we open with Jake, he's tired, he's annoyed, he's had enough, he's so overwhelmed, he can't even play a video game with Marco, and Rachel wants something, he just can't be bothered. And we hear some whack music, and Jake's in his home, and his brother Tom, who's a controller, who has a yerk in his head, by the way. He's kind of messing with him. Even Jake's had enough of this. So Jake goes back to his room, and he kind of starts praying. And without so much praying, he starts saying, like, I just don't want this anymore. I don't want this power. I don't want to do this. And the Elemist appears. Now, the Elemist... Okay, bear with me here. I did not read the Elemist Chronicles. I know that might shock you. I didn't read the Elemist Chronicles. I tried to read some of it. And I think I was a kid with a short attention span, and I didn't care about some of the stuff going on there for a reason it didn't hook me. I never finished it. I don't have the book right now to read. So I'll try to cover what I know of the Elemist, and if I fuck up, feel free to correct me. But anyway, the Elemist is like this blue space alien deity of sorts. He has like crazy powers, right? He's like a space wizard. So in the books, he froze time. He gave Tobias his ability to morph back, which is something that nobody else could do. He had the Animorph like taken away to another planet to fight a like battle on his behalf. Stuff like that. There's other stuff like he kind of meddles and stuff. So he has the ability to just kind of be all willy-nilly. He also removed Elfangor from a timeline where Elfangor had turned to a human and fell in love with a woman and had a kid and took it back to his Andalite form. That happened to be the father of Tobias, by the way. Elfangor. That's not going to matter. I'm trying to mention that because it's very strange. Now, I'm not familiar with him in the show as much, because I haven't watched much of the show. But in the show, he looks like an old dude in a robe with a blue light, kind of like a ghost, like he's fading out. He looks like a Force ghost. So he asks Jake, is that what you want? And then we get an intro, and we don't get the cool intro that I was thinking. There was an intro that had a song that was like, it's all in your head. That's not here. I don't know if that's because rights issues. They play a song here, but it's a very generic song. And you hear Jake talking over it. And I will say, the intro is very good. The intro does a good job of kind of capturing the intro of the books. Usually like, my name is Jake. I can't tell you who I am. I can't tell you where I live. All you need to know is I'm finding the Yerks. Stuff like that, you know. It has like kind of like that. Him talking about the alien invasion, how they can't trust people. And you see some of the morphing ability in the show. And I will say, I thought the morphing, like the CGI sucked. It's not as bad as I thought. I mean, for the time, it probably was like it was okay. You know, all things considered, like it could have been way worse. It's pretty generic, you know, but like it's fine. It's fine. To be fair, we really need a new Animorphs series or movie. We literally do. That would be awesome. Anyway, yeah. So Jake wishes he never met Elfangor. So Elma's like, if this is what you want, I'll grant it. So, well, we go to the new reality. We're in another timeline now. So Tom invites Jake to go to a meeting of the Sharing. Alright, the Sharing. Brief little overview of the Sharing. The Sharing is like a group. It's like a kids club for like, supposed to be like helping kids that are struggling. But they're actually a front to put yerks into people's heads. evil Boy Scouts, basically. So we see in school after this, Tobias is briefly stalking Rachel, as you do. And Jake is kind of like, what's up with that guy? He's a bit weird. And he's like, he has to go see Chapman, the vice principal, who also happens to have a yerk in his head. He's the controller. And a pretty high rank in one of the books. I don't think he has an official title, but he's always involved in shit. So then we don't see what Jake says to Chapman. We see that Tobias and Rachel are lab partners. And Tobias points out that people are acting weird lately. He points out to a girl like behind him that was really rude and obnoxious and loud, but now she's just really quiet. Rachel's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Tobias is like, I can't tell you. It'll put you in danger. And Rachel says, well, Danger's my middle name. I'm Austin Danger Powers. No, I'm kidding. She doesn't say that. Hold on just a minute. Ugh. Alright, I'm sweating. No, she says, like, what kind of danger? She's like, she mentions terrorists at one point, and that feels a little weird now. I mean, even, like, a year after this, it would feel weird, right? Anyway. We found out that Tobias did tell Rachel somewhat because we see a cut, like, of her talking to Cassie, her best friend out there. I remember, also a fellow Animorph in the other timeline. So, we're already kind of getting the pieces together, the Animorphs, like, how they're doing. Right now, they're just kind of hanging out and whatever, and she's like, tells her about that. So, we find out that they're going to go to a meeting of the sharing, and Rachel invites Tobias, too. So, we get Tom kind of messing with Jake, like, playing basketball. I will say, Tom is also, the actor playing him is really good. He's good at convincing you that he's a big brother to Jake. They kind of have the vibe. It works. So we go to the sharing event, which is at the Spider Club, apparently. And this is like every party scene, a teen drama in the 90s you could think of. They're drinking stuff. I think it's implied it's not booze, because the sharing are supposed to be good, moral, upstanding people, even though they're putting alien slugs in your head to control you. But they're drinking something, and they're like close-ups, and they're dancing, and they're playing weird pseudo-electronic music. You probably know what I'm saying. Like, picture the Bronze on Buffy, but with worse music. Because the Bronze usually has pretty good music. They have like spider webs on the walls, and there's like black lights and neon colors. You know. So here's Marco. This is the first time we see him in this reality, and he's dressed up like a preppy. Hey, preppy. He looks like AC Slater if he dressed up like Zach Morris, basically. And Rachel's like, she's surprised to see him here. He's like, I joined the sharing last week. Ooh, that's not good. So he says, welcome to the club. Keep your ears open. Ooh. Don't do that, Rachel. You don't want that. You don't want that yerk getting there. Yep. So we see Tobias enters. Jake's at the table talking to Rachel. And Rachel says, mentions that Tobias has a conspiracy. He thinks Chapman's part of it too. So Jake runs off, and he's going to talk to Cassie for a little bit because he likes Cassie. That's the whole thing in the books too. And yeah, there's not much else here really. We see Tobias sneak off to the back, and Jake's like, I'm going to follow him. So they have a little brief meeting in the back where neither of them are supposed to be. And he asks Tobias, what's up? And Tobias is like, strange stuff's going on. And Jake's like, something weird's going on too, my brother. He's like, what do you think, Tobias? Tobias is like, the sharing is a front for an alien invasion. And Jake says, I'm dead ass serious. You've been watching too much Mystery Science Theater. I would have thought he said X-Files, but alright, I'll take it. Anyway, now Tom comes in. And Tom is like, he's like, hey, y'all gotta get out of here. Y'all aren't supposed to be back here. What are you doing? And he brings some of his friends we saw kind of earlier in the episode, kind of messing with Jake. And they kind of just take Tobias out of the... Sorry, I wrote my notes weird here, but yeah, Tobias out of the room or whatever. Then we have Jake. Tom goes up and is like, what did Tobias say? And Jake just stupidly tells him, he's like, oh, he thinks there's an alien invasion going on. But there's a twist. Dun, dun, dun. Because Jake tells Tom, Tobias knows too much. They have to move quickly. Very quickly. They have to do something to stop him. Alright then. So, now we've already seen some altered reality here. Now this is a weird thing because this is implied that if Jake wasn't an Animorph, that his brother would just make him a controller? Because there are hints in the book of that, the fact that he lives with a controller, that it's always kind of weird that he just isn't taken. You know, because you would figure he or his parents too, as far as we know throughout the books, they're not turning controllers. At least not in a certain point. Later, they does happen later in the book, but way in the end game. Also, I forgot to mention that I think I did say the show's on Tubi. Yeah, okay. I forgot. Yeah, it's all on Tubi if you're curious. If you want to watch this yourself. Sorry I don't put clips here. I probably should. But I don't know how to do that. And also, I don't know. I feel like I'm doing a good job here. You know, this is like a visual podcast. What we're doing. Anyway, Tobias says it's cool the next day, and Rachel asks him, "Is everything okay?" And he says, "Don't trust anybody." What? And Cassie shows up at the locker, and Tobias gives her a look like. Rachel's like, "That's my best friend, dog. What are you doing?" And he's like, he tells her, "You gotta be careful, you know. You don't know who you can trust." And Jake comes over and he's like, "Hey, Tobias, I'm sorry Tom was a douche yesterday. He's a bit weird. He's had a rough go of it." Anyway, Jake's like, "What are you guys talking about?" "So what do you want to talk about?" Then Chapman's like, "Hey, Jake, come to my office." So Jake goes to Chapman and he tells him, "Tobias knows." And then we find out right there because Chapman's like, "What do you mean he knows, sir?" And he's like, "Don't sir me." And he calls Chapman his like Yerk name because Yerks have different names. Something like 458. I think he's like taking his number distinction. But Jake is more high ranking than Chapman is here because the right Yerks do have ranks. You know, even though like regular Yerks, the highest rank you can get to is like Visser. You can also have sub Vissers. So Vissers, like they're in the books, there's Vissers 1 to 4 for a while at least, and we don't learn of any other Vissers. There's a sub Visser, I think 57, and we don't learn of any other sub Vissers. There's references to sub Vissers, but we don't learn of any of them. So it goes like regular Yerk, and I'm assuming there's a ranking there too, and then sub Visser, and then Visser. So anyway, this doesn't really matter except for one scene, by the way. So Jake's like, "I think Tobias is working with an Andalite." Well, his dad was an Andalite, so probably a good guess. So Jake starts giving Chapman the riot act. He's like, "Hey, you're not doing your job. You're supposed to keep an eye on students." He threatens him, and then he's like, "Visser Free has instructed me to take care of this personally." First reference to Visser Free. So we see Jake leave out of the office, and he's like, "Thanks for that advice, Chapman. I will take things easier." But then, guess what? But wait, there's more. Tobias like comes with his head out of the bathroom, and we see like by the camera like shows the vent, and like you hear their voices, and you see Tobias. So it's implied that he heard from the bathroom in the vent them talking. Okay, fair enough. Whatever, that's fine. So I don't know. They have Jake and Tobias have a tense stare down in the hallway where like Tobias by the lockers. Jake's looking at him like. It's like that. And then he eventually just leaves them. So Tobias calls Rachel later on in her home from a phone booth. Y'all remember phone booths? Anyway, she tells her basically to come meet him at the Spider Club because he wants to look for something there. He wants to find something they're hiding. But at the same time, Rachel's talking to Cole like, "Oh, hey, Cassie, you want to borrow my chem notes? That's fine." Because Jake is with her. Alright, then. So we go to the club. Find me in the club. We see Rachel. She enters. She's like, "Hey, Tobias, where you at?" And then Jake comes in all creepy like. He's like, "What are you doing here, Rachel? What's going on?" He's like, "She's like, nothing, Jake. I just think I forgot my jacket here or something." And then, boom! Out comes a lion. A motherfucking lion. It scares the piss out of Jake, and he hits his head like on this wall or something. Now, this is where it gets a little weird, and I'm probably gonna explain this way too much. But this lion is very significant because I didn't watch a lot of the show, but I'm aware in the show the lion was Rachel's battle morph. See, the Animorphs would have battle morphs they used to go into battle, specifically unique to each of them. More famously, Marco had a gorilla and Jake had a tiger. Oddly enough, like Axe just came in as an Andalite. Kind of weird he didn't get some special battle morph. And Rachel though would famously have a grizzly bear in the books. Now, I'm assuming because maybe it's harder to get a grizzly bear. The trainer, maybe it was just cheaper to get a lion. They chose a lion. But the lion's significant to the Animorphs book series because the lion is used by 2 other Animorphs because they do eventually get other Animorphs. One of them happens to be a character who betrays them. The other one does not betray them, and he's actually very helpful to them, but makes it very unfortunate. Now, I'm sorry if these are spoilers for Animorphs for books from like 20 years ago. I apologize. I haven't said which Animorph it is though, so whatever. But I mean, just wanted to point this out because it's very significant here. But what's weird here is that this lion is here. So is this somebody in Morph? Could it be Axe maybe? Since in the original reality, he was stuck at sea because the ship he was on was part of Elfangor's ship and it broke off, and he was trapped at sea for a while and calling for help. Eventually, the Animorphs come to save him. Don't know, because otherwise, what's the other option here? Could it be baby Cassie? Because you've got the morph ability, Tobias? Anyway, so Rachel's like, "Hey Jake, are you okay?" And then we hear Fought speak, and it's Tobias. He's the lion. But wait, how did he get the power? Okay, so Tobias morphed back, and he's like, "Hey Jake, where's the Kandrona rays?" Now the Kandrona rays, they're these like laser beam things, and they're usually in a pool area, known as the Yerk pool. And Yerks have to go in these things and like swim in them and absorb the rays every 3 days, or they die. And it's a brutal death where they shrivel up and shrink. And it's basically like, it's supposed to be like their sun, the sun of their planet. It kind of gives them the energy, right? It's like a portal version of that. This is like the only real weakness the Yerks have that can be exploited very well, that the Animorphs use. So he's like, "Where's the Kandrona ray? Where's the Kandrona ray?" Jake's like, "I'm not going to tell you that." And Tobias like, "Well, you don't have to tell me, because Jake will tell me when that worm in your head dies." He's like, "Well, Jake isn't here anymore. Jake's gone. I'm all there is." And then evil Jake is like, "But I got a question for you. Where's the Endolite you're working with? You had to be working with an Endolite." But we don't get to find out where the Endolite is, because, well, first of all, we found out Rachel's the controller. Because she's like, "Tobias morphed. I saw him." And he's like, and then, yeah, Rachel's been compromised. And the other guys come back and capture Tobias. They're holding Tobias, and Jake's like, "Yeah, morph if you think you can, but you don't have the strength." I'm like, I don't think that's very canon to the books. I'm pretty sure we can morph. And then Rachel's like, and she's having trouble with her head, and she apologizes to Tobias. Her human form, her human self was able to fight the Yerk briefly. She's like, "I'm sorry, Tobias. I didn't mean to do it." And it's kind of crazy because that's something that happens in the books sometimes, but it's very rare. Kind of like if you watch Supernatural, like when somebody fights back against a demon position. It hasn't happened very much. So then in comes Visser Free in his ball-headed human morph. Ball-headed ho. And Visser Free, excuse me. So Jake's like, "This is the Endolite warrior, and he's the only resistance of Earth," referencing Tobias, which I don't think is true. He's not the Endolite warrior. He's working with the Endolite warrior. You even said that. You were asking him, "Where's the Endolite?" Anyway, so Jake gets promoted to Visser 10, which is a weird promotion, because like I said in the books, they only go up to 4. But whatever. So Tobias is like, "Jake, we should have been on the same side. It should have been like this. We should have fought together." Jake's like, "We are going to fight together on the same side." It's Yerks. And he like pulls out the Yerk out of a tube. He's about to put it in his ear. He's like, "Ugh!" And then he starts fighting him in the head. And Tobias is like, fight it, Jake. Fight it, you're a real you." And Visser Free's like, "Get it together." And then we see the end of this where it's just Jake back in his room. It's like the beginning. Cassie like knocks on the door. He opens it. She brought him a book bag. And here comes Axe. He's in human form. And Axe, but seriously, was not in that timeline at all. So I'm assuming he's the person that gave Tobias the power, but we don't really know how he got it or where he was at. So he's like, "I gotta show you something, Jake." I want to point out in the books he always calls him Prince Jake, and it's pretty funny because he keeps getting annoyed. It's an end like custom thing. It's really funny. Anyways, he blows a bubble, and I mean that was pretty funny too. It does feel like something Axe would do, because one complaint about this show when I have watched it, the characters don't act very much in character, but Axe does very much here just act like the way Axe would act. So there you go. Anyway, so we see Jake's like, "Nothing's changed." He's like, "They were still fighting the Yerks." And then they're like, "What?" And Tobias lands on his door, like his window as a hawk. He's like, "You're still a hawk. You look good as a hawk." He's like, "All right then." And then he's like, "Well, that's all right then." Marco and Rachel come in, and he's all happy. He's like, "We're not controllers. We're fighting the Yerks." They kind of wrestle him on the bed, and you hear like a voiceover him saying like he's so happy he's still fighting the Yerks with his friends. And that's the end of Not My Problem. Now, let me give you my thoughts. Alright. I will say, I like this episode a lot better than I thought I was going to. I thought it was going to be very bad, but it was pretty enjoyable. And the only real like plot hole problem was the thing about not really knowing what Andalite gave Tobias power or where he was. I did feel like this was a pretty interesting take on what the book did, because but brief spoiler for back to before, that is a seriously fucked up book. There's a lot of fucked up Animorphs, but that one, ooh boy, there's some shit in there. Mainly that you get a lot of commentary of one of the Animorphs being a controller, which you do get here, almost all of them becoming controllers. The book has a more positive ending too, which is weird that this is the lighter version, but it has a darker ending. The implication being that the Earth's basically fucked. Tobias is captured. He was the only human fighting, and no one knows where his Andalite is. He's probably dead. If he's there, he might gain the power and die too. We don't know. Yeah, that's a bit weird, but I did like it. It's kind of like almost It's a Wonderful Lifestyle take, you know. I like stories like this where I want to try to look at this too. For the most part, I would say it's not bad. If you want to give it a watch, it's fine for what it is, and yeah, I don't know. I enjoy it. It was interesting. I would suggest though, well, if you're gonna read back to before, you pretty much have to read the entire Animorphs book series to get to that point to kind of understand it more. Well, I guess you don't have to, but some things won't hit as hard. You know what I mean? And whereas this is like, you kind of get just to watch the episode like I did, and you don't really have to know much about Animorphs. You kind of can just watch it, and you get the story pretty easily. I'll say, you know, for what it worked, it was fun. Yeah, I don't know about the rest of the series. I don't really have as much love for it, but this episode was pretty good for what it was, and that's all I gotta say. So, you know, shouts out, not my problem. Good enough episode. And thanks for watching, and have a great day.